no matter how much I wish it wasn't. This story is completely true. I wasn't drunk and I wasn't high on any drugs. Neither was my friend, but I fear his state of mind might have been permanently altered due to his experience with these beings. Secondly, I like to consider myself a rational, thinking type of person, with years of experience hunting and hiking around my hometown in Wyoming. I've seen all kinds of fauna and flora, so I didn't confuse what I saw for something entirely different. It all started when I went to a friend's house to celebrate his birthday. He was turning 18, and I was already 18 myself. His uncle, a man more native to the land than myself, was 27. Let's call this friend James. I finally got to his house at about 4 p.m. that night. It was January 25th. Since he effectively lived in the middle of nowhere and at the foothills of the Rockies, I was keen on bringing something with me, in case I ran into some trouble, like a bear or something of the like. So I brought along with me a .357 Magnum and some binoculars, in case my friend wanted to try and hunt some coyotes with his .223 rifle. We started doing our normal routine for most of the day, playing games on his computer, watching some TV, and just chilling out and talking about school. His parents were away on a business trip to a nearby town, so they left James and his uncle the house to themselves. The thing that James loved the most in the world was easily his dogs. He had 2 chocolate labs and a golden retriever. The retriever was actually fairly old. This being Wyoming and people not really giving a hoot, the dogs were left out all day. They came and went as they pleased back to his house. Sometime around 8 or 9 p.m., we heard his dogs begin barking at something off in the distance. At this point, the sun was long gone, but the full moon gave an amazing amount of light. I looked through the nearby window in the direction of the dogs barking. Even with the moon shining against the snow, I could not see anything up to the tree line that was nearly a mile away. "There's nothing there," I said. "Are you sure? They don't even bark at deer anymore," James whispered to me. The whole situation was weird. Fast forward an hour, and his dog
Take command of the skies with an aviation degree from the University of Southern Queensland, Australia's only...
have not been heard or seen since the barking started. His uncle was buzzed and watching something on their huge TV. James was beginning to worry that something happened to his dogs. Now, wolves can still be dangerous in the Rockies, and they have no problem taking down a random dog that wanders into the woods. This is the moment where I started to get anxious, partly because he wanted to get his dog back, and partly because wolves sometimes kill sheep, or even cows. So if they were desperate, I'm sure they would have no problem with us. Even still, those dogs were his family. So we grabbed our guns, and we headed outside. We were armed with heavy clothing, as well as my .357, the binoculars, and his .223 rifle. We braced ourselves, and we headed out into the Wyoming winter, with temperatures 20 below freezing, going the direction of where we last saw his dogs. The whole time we walked toward the tree line, my veins were being flooded with adrenaline, the same feeling I got every time I hunted. But tonight, we definitely weren't hunters. We were about 300 yards away from the tree line, when James suddenly stopped. With my eyes trained on the ground and looking for signs of an animal, I almost ran into him. He just stared at the tree line. He kept whispering for me to look at the trees. Slowly, he raised his left index finger towards the foothills of the mountains. As soon as he knew I was looking towards the trees, he readied his rifle and pointed it towards them. I noticed at this point that his breathing was extremely rapid and raspy, like he just witnessed a fatal car crash right in front of him. At that point, I honestly didn't know what he was talking about. I scanned the tree line over and over. I crouched down to sit on the snow. I used the binoculars towards where he pointed. It took me about 30 seconds, but eventually I saw what scared the hell out of him. There was something out there, and it wasn't human, and it wasn't his dogs. Something on 4 legs came out from behind a tree at the edge of the forest. It must have been about 3 feet tall at the shoulder. Of course, at first, I assumed it was a wolf, or maybe even a small bear. A few seconds later, several more of these things came out of the woods. I didn't pause to try and count them. There was at least 6 or 7, and who knows how many more were hiding in the trees still. We watched them slowly walk out of the trees for several minutes. These animals seemed strangely cautious or slow for whatever reason. Maybe they were scared of people. Then they eventually stopped as a howl from a dog or wolf came out from behind us. It was far enough away for us to not worry about it, but close enough for the unknown animals out there to hear the howl as well. I looked back through the binoculars and could almost make out the general texture of these creatures. They were now about 275 yards away. They looked pale and thin. They still appeared to be something like wolves or even large dogs. But my heart began to race when I saw what they did next. These things, whatever they were, picked up their pace fast, reaching speeds of what looked like 15 to 20 miles per hour, judging from how fast they closed their distance to the direction of the howl. And, coincidentally, this was almost right at us. After a minute or so, James lost it and tried to get up to run away. I grabbed him and threw him on the ground as he started to run, but this caught the attention of the beasts, and they stopped. James and I, frozen with fear, sat down in the snow, weapons ready. I almost lost it as well when I noticed that the eyes of these things reflected the moonlight. They were orange in color. They didn't really glow like in some stories of cryptids. They were more piercing. We stared at them, and they stared back at us for what seemed like hours, until one of these creatures stood up on its back legs. At this moment, all of my knowledge on hunting and animals was meaningless. I knew that some animals could stand up on their back legs, but they could never do it very long. I audibly counted to see how long it stayed like that. 5 seconds, 10, 15. Then James screamed and pointed his .223 to the right. I looked in his direction, and I saw a creature on the left side of the group begin to get up, and it ran away from the pack. Dumbfounded, I turned my attention to the rest of them, and I told James to keep watching the one that ran away. I do a quick count of the ones that remained, the ones that were staring us down. There were only 4. My heart pounded out of my chest. There was no way we could have lost something so large on these plains. They're completely flat and covered in snow. I looked to our left, and then I saw it. It was crouched down and trying not to be seen. I realized how smart these things were, much smarter than I would have ever expected. These things, they were flanking us. I whispered to James my suspicions of what's going on, and he had the same thought. I made up a quick plan in my head, and I relayed it to James, our best course of action. I told him to start backing away slowly, but to always maintain eye contact. As soon as I finished telling him my idea, I do another quick count. Now only 3 pairs of orange eyes. Another one went somewhere. The one that first stood was starting to walk towards us. I helped James up, and I told him to keep an eye on our right side, while I looked to the left. We backed away, but these beasts walked with us, maintaining their distance the whole time. Eventually, we were only about 100 yards from his house before we turned and ran to his front door. We booked it towards his porch lights, no longer caring to be coy about the situation. Foolishly, I stopped 50 feet short of the porch, and I turned around. Maybe it was curiosity. I don't know, but I regretted it the moment I did it. My body seized up the moment I saw it. Those creatures stopped as soon as I made eye contact. With the creatures ever so slightly illuminated by the porch lights, I realized that these things seemed otherworldly. They were tall, probably 6 or 7 feet, and they were insanely thin and lanky, almost like a basketball player. They were so pale, and they stared right back with these intense orange eyes from before. I just looked back, less afraid, but more curious, and a few seconds later, James screamed, "What are you doing?" I pulled myself out of the weird trance I found myself in, and I sprinted towards his house. I jumped inside and bolted the door, all while his drunk uncle swore at us for making too much noise. I looked out of the windows with my gun in hand, but I didn't see a thing. Nothing but fresh tracks. I pulled the curtains back where they were, and we heard the strangest noise, anything other than a person I've ever heard. It sounded like a dog's howl, but it repeated, almost like it was coming from a Siamang gibbon, in repeated pulses in different pitches and tones. The uncle looked like he instantly sobered up after hearing it, and he started locking all the doors and windows in the house. To our surprise, all of James's dogs were back, but they were very frightened and confused, cowering in a corner. We watched through the windows for almost the entire night, until I eventually needed to fall asleep. But we never had any other problems since. Whatever these things were, they were fast, they were smart, and they were nothing.
So I thought I'd do this continuation to my previous video on the exciting, soon-to-be-added new location for Grand Theft Auto Online. To those of you who never saw that video, I'm just going to quickly summarize it for the sake of context. So a lot of people think that Liberty City is going to be getting added to GTA 5. In this video, I addressed the evidence, I guess you would call it, and by the end of the video, I also explained why I just think this doesn't make sense for GTA Online. And as to be expected, a lot of people commented on that video, quite a few of which made the typical arguments that I expected. Nothing of actual substance or meaning, just people basically saying, you're wrong. I'm not going to explain why, but, you know, you're just wrong. And another one that I liked was, your arguments are bad. I'm not going to explain why, but, you know, your arguments are just bad. You know, I wish I could do the same thing in videos and not have people call me lazy or stupid, but alas, my audience actually has expectations. Speaking of which, what are my expectations for this upcoming update? If it's not going to be Liberty City, then what the are they planning? I never explained what I think this new location is going to be. This is something that was announced shortly prior to me making that video, and really, it'd be kind of dishonest for me to just make up some bullshit and be like, oh, here's what I think they're going to be doing, without actually putting any thought into it. So now that about a couple weeks have passed since I put up that video, I've given this enough thought where I actually feel comfortable making a video speculating about it. And I'm going to do my best to explain my thought process, and if you feel otherwise, by all means, let me know in the comments below. So, without any further ado, let's get into it. I think it would make sense to have this new location be something that we haven't yet seen, but also something that would naturally fit the tone of GTA 5. Liberty City was used in GTA 4 because the city reflected the story's gritty, cold, and dark tone. You know, just like how Carcer City in Manhunt is a reflection of the derelict and shady tone of the rest of the game. So putting Liberty City into GTA Online would feel out of place. And as I explained in the aforementioned video, this would also be way too expensive for something as small as yet another GTA Online update. Some of these updates are big, but they're not that big. I've actually seen a lot of you in the comments say that North Yankton would be cool. So XX Noob Slayer XX said, the new location is probably North Yankton because it's already in the game. Now yes, North Yankton is technically already in the game. The problem is that it's not a complete town. In fact, this is why the game prevents you from wandering off during the missions that take place there. So although the town does exist in GTA 5, it's not fully developed. It's actually really bare bone and only used very briefly as a setting for two of the most linear missions in the game. So if Rockstar was to add North Yankton to GTA 5, then they would have to not only create the entire town, but they would also have to find ways of retaining the parts we've already seen. It just makes it a total cluster to like remake this town. I don't see them doing that. Another problem you'll run into is how big North Yankton actually is. Contrary to what you may think, North Yankton is a state, not a town. The town itself is Ludendorff, which, as represented in the game, only makes up a small portion of the state. If this is the path Rockstar is taking, then it comes down to two choices. Either A, they spend way too much time and money on adding something way too big, which in this case would be the state of North Yankton, or B, they give the player base a tiny restricted slice of what they want, thus leaving way too many people feeling disappointed, which would be Ludendorff, a really small town in a big state. So again, North Yankton, cool idea, I like that. I just don't see it happening. Again, the problem is North Yankton itself. It's way too big and open, you know, just like your mom's ass. I think to Los Santos, but big enough to keep people interested. Now, bear in mind, Los Santos and the surrounding areas like Sandy Shores and Toledo Bay are all based on California. So in keeping keeping with the tone of the game, would it then not make sense to have this new location be based on another area of California? San Fierro, which is based on San Francisco, comes to mind, but then how do you add that to the map? San Fierro is a big place, and to someone unfamiliar with video game development, this might sound simple, but this would take a lot of time and cost a lot of money. Naturally, you would have the same problem adding Las Venturas. Not to mention that Las Venturas is based on Las Vegas, Nevada, and not California, so it kind of doesn't jive that well with the tone of the game. So I had a good look at the map of California. I honestly think one of the California Channel Islands would be a really good option. And here's why. It's because not only would this be a totally new location as promised, but this would also be way easier to add to the game's map. You know, you would not have to awkwardly connect that to any already existing part. This would be a separate section of the map, making pedestrians and traffic and whatever else you may have on there much easier to add. And whatever island they would choose to go with would be way smaller than your average Grand Theft Auto city. This would spare a lot of expenses and development time. And look, I know that I've mentioned cost quite a few times throughout this video, but let's be honest, money matters a lot. And listen, I know there's going to be somebody in the comment section saying, oh, well, money doesn't matter at all. I'm not going to explain why, but, you know, money just doesn't matter. It actually does. Especially when you're talking about a video game that broke sales records. And I understand that a lot of you want Liberty City. I understand that a lot of you want North Yankton. A lot of you want San Fierro. A lot of you want Las Venturas. Like 5 of you want Carcer City. But even a company as big and successful as Rockstar Games has to keep almost everything as practical as possible, especially when it pertains to investments, which this is technically an investment. You know, they're putting money into something and expecting a nice return. And given how specific Rockstar was about this new location being, well, quote, an entirely new location, it's kind of obvious that this new location is going to be an actual new location and not just a city or small town we've already seen. A California Channel Island would be big enough to keep people interested for a while, but not big enough to feel like a huge gamble on Rockstar's part. And hey, think about this. There's a thing happening right now. I can't mention what that thing is, but I think you all know what I'm talking about. Yeah, that being the case, a lot of Rockstar developers have been working from home. This obviously means that development has been somewhat hindered, I guess you would say, by the current circumstances. And until this issue has been resolved, they're gonna continue to keep things simple. Adding Liberty City, San Fierro, Las Venturas, or really any other major city would not be simple. And as far as business goes, let's talk about that real quick. This could incentivize a lot of players to buy helicopters, airplanes, and boats so they can actually travel to the island. GTA 5 being based on California, it just makes sense that they would have a California Channel Island. I could be totally dead wrong. I could be way off. I'm just explaining the conclusion that I've come to. I feel like my track record has been good as of late. Like every now and then, you know, I'll be wrong about something, but for the most part, it's like, yeah, I'm either in the ballpark or I'm just spot on. But again, I have thought about this long enough to come to the conclusion that they're probably going to give us an island based on a real-life counterpart. So I guess we'll find out.
Ramen?
Oh, look at that. You actually made it to the end of the video. Nice. Good job, viewer. I'm proud of you. So there's one more thing I want to mention before I end this video, and that is this GoFundMe page. This is Robert Salier and his son Parker. Just about a couple weeks ago, they were both in a car accident. Robert passed away, and right now his son Parker is recovering from multiple severe injuries from that accident. My girlfriend actually used to babysit Parker, so this hits kind of close to home for her. So as of now, Parker's family is raising $15,000. This is so they can pay for his hospital expenses, a memorial service for Robert, and food and supplies for Parker and the other people in the Salier household. So if you want to chip in a few dollars and help the Salier family, then you can find a link to their GoFundMe page in the video info down below. Thank you.
last breath? Will you be crying for the ones you missed but one that you left? Will your name carry on when you lay to rest? And if heaven's rule will God say you pass the test? Will you repent for your sins, kneel and confess? This life's a journey, son, and death it is the final quest.
You were the shadow to my light. Did you feel another star? You fade away. Afraid our aim is out of sight. Wanna see you alive. Where are you now? Where are you now? Where are you?
Where are you now that I need you the most? When stuff moves in my house, I'm thinking that as she goes, you would have loved to meet your great-granddaughter. She's all smiles, the time flies, looking just like me when I was a child. Thinking back on the memories that we shared, how I could tell you anything because I know that you cared. You were straight proper, cause it's the way you were reared. I hadn't talked to my brother properly in some years. I was locked up, doctor came and said I had a call. That moment knew you were gone, I didn't want to fucking talk. I went back to my pod and I slammed my cell door. Tears ran down my cheek and they hit the cold floor. But it's hard to grieve in that place and it's hard to mourn. I already had a broken heart, but now the bastard was gone. I think about you every day and then I wish you weren't gone. But I see you when I get there, your spirit lives on.
You were the shadow to my light. Did you feel another star? You fade away. Afraid our aim.
Rồi tiếp sau.
I just wanna drink and get fucked up. I just feel so lonely inside my heart. I just wish that I could feel some love. Feel like I've been stabbed with a million shards. I can't stand myself when I'm sober. Intoxicate myself so I feel alive. I just want this all to be over. I can't help that I feel so dead inside. I don't wanna feel this fucking pain no more. I'm so tired of feeling empty deep inside my soul. Being alive just doesn't feel the same no more. Maybe it's just time to clock out and let go. I promise you I'm trying to be the best I can. The more I try to love myself, the more I hate who I've become. I honestly have no clue who the fuck I am. I wanna drink the pain away till I get drunk. I wanna get fucked up and drift away. And when the sun comes up, I won't awake. Let the alcohol run through my veins. I know this is my fault, I'm so ashamed. I don't wanna be here anymore. I don't know what I have been looking for. I know that I'm damaged internally. I can no longer manage this misery. Close my eyes, don't wanna wake up. Hope is dying, and I'm afraid of being alive. Don't wanna stay here, just wanna lay here. I know my grave's near. Is all that I feel. Ever since I failed to heal, my wounds will remain. I can't explain this awful pain. I just feel so lonely inside my heart. Feel like I've been stabbed with a million. No, I swear to God I'll never feel again. Praying to God to help me get within. If I died right before I wake, would you take my soul if it's filled with sins? Fill my cup up to the brim. Getting fucked up to feel again. Getting drugged up to hear within. Cause my faith in God has been getting slim. All this pressure has been getting to me. All these heartbreaks have been too many. If I die now, would you forget me? Would you regret the fact that you let me? I've been crying for so fucking long. Crying for help in every fucking song. It's more than music, these are my alarms. Don't act surprised surprising when you all alone. How much longer will I stay on earth? How much harder do I have to search? How much longer just to bear the hurt? What if past is what I deserve? I'm out of breath running from this curse. I'm out of breath running from this curse. There's nothing left, I have zero worth. Let me rest in peace deep below the dirt. Fuck. I just feel so lonely inside my heart. Feel like I've been stabbed with a million shards. Intoxicate myself so I feel alive. I can't help that I feel so dead inside.
Squad with the mad cunts on the weekends. We boys for fucking life. Coming up. Monday night and the weeds uplifting. Tuesday night in the Commodore drifting. Wednesday night feels like I'm shape-shifting. Thursday night and the pokies are gifting. Monday night and the weeds uplifting. Tuesday night in the Commodore drifting. Wednesday night feels like I'm shape-shifting. Thursday night and the pokies are gifting. I love getting drunk with my brothers, that's a ritual. See us down the pub, fucking rowdy, getting physical. I'm high on that herb, meditating, getting spiritual. And drinking with the brothers, getting cutting as the spirits do. My weekdays and weekends, I wake up with new friends. My vendors, they don't ain't got no time for fake friends. I see through the clear lens, shine like a new bends and boot cars with key ends while drifting in VNs. I love every day just as much as the other, but it's just one more excuse to make tracks with my brother. Smashing Coronas down in winter like the middle of summer. Weekdays with my bitch, you can say that I love her. Bars hot, make your bitch sweat, burning that rubber. Move quick like the cartel, but I ain't a runner. Went straight to the top, now we chill at the summit. Real cuts move alone, fake cuts moving numbers. Monday night and the weeds uplifting. Tuesday night in the Commodore drifting. Wednesday night feels like I'm shape-shifting. Thursday night and the pokies are gifting. Monday night and the weeds uplifting. Tuesday night in the Commodore drifting. Wednesday night feels like I'm shape-shifting. Thursday night and the pokies are gifting. It's a weekday night and I'm living up the weekend. The rest of the world see me popping and they're freaking. Cause I love the party and you know that's what I'm seeking. To piss up with the boys, us the gangers to go streaking. If no one takes it off, then I'll please just get a peek in. I sent some dick pics, gotta hope they won't be leaking. And to the girl I'm tuning, well I guess we won't be speaking. Due to photos on my Snapchat, I'll be with my clothes on in the latest snapback. But in my own defense, it's still better than that crack rap. Monday through to Friday and I'm playing like a fat track. Fucking off the phone, I'm just hoping to get that back. Booty in my future and I'm gonna have to slap that. See if she can drop it and give me a little clap clap. Then we find a room and our bodies with a tap tap or to the same effect. Not stop the pussy screaming that her pussy's fucking wrecked. Monday night and the weeds uplifting. Tuesday night in the Commodore drifting. Wednesday night feels like I'm shape-shifting. Thursday night and the pokies are gifting. Monday night and the weeds uplifting. Tuesday night in the Commodore drifting. Wednesday night feels like I'm shape-shifting. Thursday night and the pokies are gifting. Well, it's a weekday. You can catch me with the brothers pressing in my holding Commodore. Burning that rubber on our way to pick some butter. We about to get blazed. I've been smoking them in the barber since back in the day. I couldn't care what they say. I'm just loving life at the moment. Recording tracks with the boys in the studio like we own it. Now I've just got to stay focused and try to keep my vision clear. The last couple of months I started fucking up a little bit. Had dreams as a little kid. Never thought I would get to here. I think it's time to celebrate. Grab a carton and raise your beers. And it's a cheers to all the fans pumping our tracks. You're the reason we don't stop and you're the reason that I'm back. Feeling lucky with this 20, I might go and have a slack. Try and figure out which pokey is gonna win me some cash. Make them stacks so we can party every day. Have the time of our lives, yeah, that's a Newey boys way. Get key for fucking talk cunts. Can we rap, rate, hit, TKO? Newey boys for fucking life. Let's get it.
One night is flabba baba wabba yabba nunga. I'm back. Run, run, run. It's the policeman. We gonna get up out the house. It's the policeman. Grab the gun, get my weed. It's the policeman. Move your old feet, running from the policeman. On the other front, hopping on the bottom man. Fuck these walks on play. I'm sick of getting mine. Talking shit and getting bashed cause I'm tipsy. I gotta call my uncle. He love to come get me. I find me out the front, fighting every time. Off my head and I'm drunk. I'm in the cigarette box. I never went to school, so I'm high and talk much. But please watch fellas, there's all for the bus. And I roll up to your house, running down one shoe. Leave a couple hours later, somehow I got two. It's like every single day I'm getting blazed off the bunch. Then I'm feeling M&M from the club and getting bust. Man, ain't nothing changed, call my knees suck. Tell her I'm getting horny and I need a good fucking mirror with the sniffing blue. Getting caught and locked up in the pig. Let me go, I'm gonna get home before they kick. 9 sisters, 12 cousins and I'm fucking a lot. Getting high, sitting stiff and fresh to pay the bus stops. I spent my last dollar now, broke as a joke, bro. Gonna work today, no I bet for money, it's my stuff. Class the well said, you think it's a crime, I get my mental from the lid. I know most of the time, the cops confiscated my stash, we bowling the drugs. I don't fit the dress, then I can't get in the car on the other front. Huffing on the button, man, fuck these walks can't say, I'm sick of getting hungry. Talking shit and getting bashed cause I'm tipsy. I gotta call my uncle, he love to come get me. I'm trying to have the front, fighting every time. Off my head and I'm drunk, I left the cigarette box. I never went to school, so I'm high and talk much. But please watch fellas, they're $1 for the bus. I sleep with mob some Asian kid and took all that cunt starty shit. Went to cash converters, hopped it in, come home 2 blocks and half a stick. 3 beers, 1 smoke each for the kids. So now we filthy fucking rich. Oh yeah, what's happening guys? My name is... I'll make you skip cunt. Fuck me.
TKO, Louis Boys for Life. This is a song I wrote for all my brothers and sisters that have ever been pushed around, set up, lost loved ones to the filthy boys in blue. Fuck the police all day, every day on this side. One is for all my brothers, all of us from different mothers. In the end we bleed red, it doesn't matter what your colour. Grew up tough, nobody loved us. Coppers always trying to cut us. If we band together, we can take them out, we got the numbers.
That's true.
Fuck the boys in blue and anyone that's repping them. We say that we're the misfits, you silver spoons don't understand. We're rising up out the ashes, stash the drugs up in the mattress. Old school 50 lashes, straight fire, call me matches. Coppers out here trying to break our families and all the rest. Now I'm tripping cause they got a bash pinned up upon the chest. It ain't the bikies, that's the problem, it's the boys in blue with vests. I'll never fucking trust the copper ever, taken to my death. Cockroaches, vermin, corrupt as fuck, I cannot stress. And if you fucking hate the 5-0, then sit and butt your head. And if you hang with dogs and you're gonna end up with fucking fleas, I'm sipping on the brown bottle, screaming out fuck the police. This one is for all my brothers, all of us from different mothers. In the end we bleed red, it doesn't matter what your colour. Grew up tough, nobody loved us. Coppers always try to cuff us. If we band together, we can take them out, we got the numbers. This one is for all my brothers, all of us from different mothers. In the end we bleed red, it doesn't matter what your colour. Grew up tough, nobody loved us. Coppers always try to cuff us. If we band together, we can take them out, we got the numbers. Cops are swine, there ain't no motherfucking second guessing. Got me stressing, trying to set your boy up, chuck him back in prison. Set me up last year, try to throw me away for 10. Would've earned my cut in tears, yeah I ain't going back again. It's FTP, with an FTS right up here on my face. I keep my crimes on down low, cause I ain't trying to catch a case. Coppers roll with guns and mace, don't talk to me or ancient mate. Take that badge and belt off and I'll leave you in a bloody state. Cunts are quick to pull the trigger, cause they're weak and lack the brave. You win some, you lose some, but live to fight another day. They don't wanna see you catch, no they don't wanna see you paid. Snitches back you out and then they're coming through your house to raid. This one is for all my brothers, all of us from different mothers. In the end we bleed red, I said it doesn't matter what your colour. TKO, Louis Boys for Life.